Howdy Meeps, and welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show.
We're live now! Okay, welcome to Meeple Syrup. So I'm hearing an echo in my headset, so I'm going to get freaked out a little bit. But here we are. And today on the show, we have Nick Nazzaro. That's 2 Zs and 1 R, and also 1 O, and 2 As and 1 N. Nazzaro.
Or you can spell it like in a right order.
Game. Yes. And there, that's how you spell it, right there.
I mean, the order is wrong, but yeah, that's the general gist.
Yeah, excellent. So let's ask him all those questions you wanted.
Yeah, so in fact, our first question from the audience, Daniel Zayas, who the F is this? Nick, who the F are you?
It depends who's asking, and since I know who's asking, I can't give a good answer. But I'm an artist, and I'm co-owner of Lay Waste Games, which is a tabletop game publishing company. We make some cool games like Dragoon, Life Siphon, and Human Era, and Metal, and Heads Will Roll, and I make all the art for all of the above.
He's
Cool.
like
And
a
how
one-man
long
show.
Yeah. And how long has Lay Waste been making games?
Our first Kickstarter, which is basically our beginning, was February of 2015.
Awesome. And you're currently live on Kickstarter. Well, you're live with us here, but you've got Life Siphon on Kickstarter right now, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So can you give us a quick spiel about what Life Siphon is about? So once we start talking about it, our viewers will have a sense of what's going on with the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 2 to 4 player combat strategy game. You all play a cursed human underground that have been forced there by dragons because all our games share a single universe. And what's happening is you have these newfound abilities that you've been cursed with, but you have to destroy the player to your left, and the first person to destroy the player to their left wins the game. And you can only attack the person to your left, so you're defending to your right. And because of that, you're sometimes helping the player to your right who is trying to kill you. But you need to be the first to destroy someone, and before anyone else. Otherwise, you lose, which is no good. But it's a lot of fun, and it's on Kickstarter right now, and I think it ends shortly. It ends like tomorrow at midnight, so very, very shortly.
Oh, so this is pretty timely.
Yeah, jump on that if
anytime.
you love what you're hearing.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually show the page. So you guys keep talking.
Yeah, that'll be
Sweet.
perfect because one of the things that sort of draws my eye to Lay Waste is just like the really cool visual style, like all of your games, and it makes sense now that we know that there's one person behind that. And so is that just your style, or is that something that you sort of created as part of the Lay Waste, the universe that these games share?
It's a healthy mix. It's definitely not this identical style to what I use in my own personal work. I do try to come up with like a unique style to every game that kind of matches the theme and what we expect the audience will be, what we think will make the game stand out as well as possible. It's like Dragoon is a very traditional in the sense that like it's dragons, it's fantasy, it's tried and true classic starting point. The gameplay mechanics definitely mix it up a little bit, and we wanted the aesthetic to be very different, a lot more modern. There's some kind of retro vibes in there, but it's definitely not your highly rendered typical fantasy kind of game. It's very angular, and that was very deliberate.
Yeah, cool. And then the other thing that's part of the aesthetic style of Lay Waste games, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think all of your games have metal pieces in them to some degree or another.
Yeah, to some degree or another. That's pretty true. It varies. I think so. Metal is like the most metal game ever, in that every single piece of it is made out of metal, including the box. The box is metal, and
That's so metal.
The least metal one I think is Human Era, where it has only a couple pieces that can be metal, but nothing has to be metal.
Well, we're going to definitely have to hear more about an entire metal game and what that took to actually get into production.
Oh,
We'll get to that because I think we're gonna.
that's a whole show.
We're always fascinated to hear what happens when you try to. What happens when you have a component you want to make that is not out there? You know what I mean? Like you are the first like to kind of to do it. So it's always a good story on what that ends up looking like.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and metal in particular, gave us a bunch of challenges. I'm not even the most familiar with them within our own company, but it was tough, but it didn't really, take too long. It's in production right now, and I think that it's almost done. It should be coming out in the next couple months, I believe.
So it's good to hear for backers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sen's temporarily
okay.
left us.
Okay.
Cool. So we have a question from the audience, and we always let them interrupt us. So I apologize if I pronounce her name wrong, but Aijin Han is asking who inspires you.
Who inspires me? Like artistically, which artists out there inspire me?
That would be my guess because we were talking about your graphic design.
Yeah. There's a lot. I definitely spend a lot of time on Instagram and Twitter finding, new artists and artists who are just working in very different fields than I work in. There's some overlap, but a lot of comic artists, a lot of traditional illustrators. Pam Wishbow, I think her stuff is amazing. I love looking at her stuff, and I'm just waiting for someone to hire her to make like a witchy game because all her stuff is so spooky and hexy and witchy, and it's all amazing. I own a bunch of her prints. So she's a big inspiration. Alison Bamcat, I love how colorful her stuff is. A lot of weird surreal stuff in her work. And now she's doing like huge murals, so her stuff is excellent. Andrew McLean, I've always liked his stuff. I got to hang out with him a little bit back when I lived in Massachusetts, and he makes Headlopper, which is a crazy successful comic, and I just love his line weight and just how he goes about it. And I know that like he studied I think songwriting. He graduated with a songwriting degree and then went on to just make his own comic out of nowhere, and it's like a huge, tremendous success. So I really like that story as well.
Yeah, you've definitely got a very retro vibe, but you've got a bit of a like almost kind of like that Penny Dreadful meets almost like a Jack Kirby sort of thing, where you can see the influence of that classic sci-fi horror kind of going on there.
Yeah, I think that it's another thing that lends itself to making my stuff look kind of older is I really limit my palettes and my methods so it doesn't look too overly digital. It's not very polished like a lot of modern art is. It's definitely, I try to keep it a little bit more crude is the wrong word, but it's more minimal, and that's like by design. And because of that, I think it kind of can come off as this could have been accomplished years ago. So it's got some retro vibes because of that.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a longer lasting quality feel that comes sometimes from that. There's something about when something's familiar, you're almost like, well, this will just be able to hang on longer or keep going. Sorry, go ahead, Jesse. Yeah. I can hear when you click in now.
Oh, great. And here I thought I was being a ninja. Yeah, so Sen's got the Kickstarter page up, and he's scrolling through it and showing people what's going on with it there. So this feels like a timely moment to ask you about penguins, because penguins, I mean, I don't know, April 1st, Sen, he hit the penguins on the page. Penguins, $12 add-on. Tell us about the penguins. I'll let you tell the story, because apparently there's more to it.
So the penguins go way back. So in our quest to make Dragoon look different in our very first Kickstarter in 2015, they're very angular, they're very sharp. They don't look like dragons normally would look in a lot of ways. And I got a little one in my hand. This is a little, where's my camera? There we go. Yeah, a little dragon piece. It's not going to focus, but it's very angular. And during the Kickstarter, they someone in the comments said that it looked more like a penguin than a dragon, which we thought was really funny. And we still think it was really funny. So our campaign overlapped with April 1st. So our first April Fool's prank was that we were changing Dragoon to Penguin because we got the metal pieces back and they were all penguins instead of dragons. So we did some like really quick additional art that made the game look playable. We made up some really ridiculous rules about throwing like penguin eggs at each other and ice breaking, and it was total ridiculousness. But then like our fans were really into the idea of Penguin. Unfortunately, we never like, you know, took it too seriously. We weren't going to actually make it. That was ridiculous. But then this campaign came along like 4 years later, and we realized we're also going to overlap with April 1st again. And Life Siphon so easily translates into Ice Siphon. So we decided to make a
Just
penguin
keep
base.
it
So, like,
rolling.
we have like yeah, exactly. So we have like a penguin, a new board that's made for penguins. We drew a couple penguin meeples, and the reaction was very immediate and very strong. And I would say half our comments on the Kickstarter are about the stupid penguin. So it's just a meeple, and we're like, okay, let's roll with this. So now I think every backer is now getting one free penguin meeple.
I
And
love
we're
how it's
gonna-
like one of these things is not like the other in this image.
Yeah,
Like,
they're all like spooky and
Dragon,
dark and gross.
fire, whatever the crazy looking gray thing is. Penguin.
Yeah, penguin. Yep. Does not really match well, but yeah, now the penguins are a thing, and because of it, we're like taking house rule like pitches, and we're gonna figure out which ones are best, and we're gonna put them out there, and hopefully everyone will dig that. But yeah, penguins were not supposed to be real, but the people have spoken.
Now
and
they
the
are.
penguins coming.
People are saying there should be more penguins in games, no matter what
Yeah.
the game is. Somehow,
Apparently,
penguins are possible.
Yeah, people
April
have been begging us
1st.
since 2015 for a penguin game, so we really
Hey.
should just like listen to what the fans
Yeah.
are saying and make it happen.
I'm calling it. April 1st, 2020, Lay Waste launches a Kickstarter for Penguin, the game that everybody actually wanted.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you're gonna have to be right. We really should do that.
Yep.
Jesse
That is
called
awesome.
it.
Yeah, that story is actually better than I was expecting. I thought it was just an April Fool's joke that went sideways on you, but it turns out it's a really long-running April Fool's joke that went sideways
It's
on
like
you.
nearly half a decade of bad April Fool jokes culminating to this little wooden penguin. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Hey,
Are you gonna make a
April-
giant one to bring with you to conventions and have it booze?
We're gonna make a giant one out of gold, and it's
That's-
gonna be a trophy for whoever has the best house rules. It's gonna get like, because we have I don't think I even have one here, but we have a dragon that's like 6 inches tall, and it's like plated with real gold. So we're gonna do something silly like that.
Oh, you really are doing this. This isn't more jokes.
Yeah, no, I'm out of jokes. That's 100% real.
I was gonna say
That
this
is
sounds like
amazing.
an adventure moment. You remember the games that were going to be released that if you beat one, you could get that like crazy prize, but it was so expensive they only got through the first prize and only like technically made the second.
Yeah,
I like.
it's
I
that,
feel like
except
we're
just
having an
for,
Atari Rewind moment here.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
we're a crazy company.
And that sounds true. But it's awesome. Like, we love it. So continuing on this thread of penguins, but maybe trying to get back into something you'd said before. You'd said that all of the Lay Waste games take place in the same universe. So can you tell us a bit about that world that you guys are building, and also the significance of penguins within it?
So penguins should not be significant in it. That's purely by accident. But
They
it
can't
looks
be
like
our
they're becoming more and
overlords
more-
like dolphins in
They're gonna be.
Hitchhiker's
I
Guide.
think we're gonna hit the future, and it's gonna be like post-apocalyptic. All the dragons are gone and dead, but penguins have reigned supreme. It's like the
Penguin
only
Mad
natural
Max.
course of action. Yeah. But yeah, so our first game was about dragons, and it was in this world that wasn't too heavily defined. Like, we give some lore, but it's not too fleshed out. But then our next game is Human Error, which is a time traveling game, and because it's time travel, literally it can be in the same universe no matter what, because anything is possible with time travel. So because of that, same universe, and there's some hints, there's some little Easter eggs in the game of Human Error, in the art itself of dragon's existence. Like, there's a dragon skull on someone's bookshelf in their garage or something like that, as well as a couple other things. And then we released Head Will Roll, which is a little dexterity game and that's like directly part of Dragoon. It's technically Dragoon Heads Will Roll, and that's where you're flicking human skulls and this is like a game that the dragons would play. And if they like land a certain way and you flick the skulls between the other skulls, it gets you more points. And it's a really fun, tiny little dexterity game that does actually really well at cons. People love playing it because it's all of 30 seconds to play, and it's no matter what, it's a good time.
It's neat to think all these different games to fit in the same kind of universe.
Yeah, it was definitely something that I don't know. We've like toyed around with the idea of a shared universe, and then when we were coming up with Life Siphon, it's like, just let's keep it going. The game has really nothing to do with dragons, except that's kind of like what got us into this predicament. Like, why are humans underground and why are they dealing with magic? And it's because they're hiding from the dragons, of Dragoon. So this is like years after humans have landed on the island of Dragoon, and they're getting conquered constantly and beat up. Which is how every time you play Dragoon, you've hurt the humans, and these are the humans that are hurt and now cursed to be underground. So it's all your fault.
So this current game then solidified the idea that everything officially now is in the same world, or were you already building towards that?
It was like in the back of our minds, but I think it's like most apparent and most deliberate in this new game.
Okay.
Other than Heads Will Roll, which is basically 100% the same universe, because it's sort of
what's
like
the name of this shared universe?
Say again?
What's the name of the shared universe?
Oh, the late Wasteoverse.
Okay.
Nothing official yet.
I guess they're naming it. Maybe after like officially this Kickstarter is done, maybe the fans can help you name this new world.
Yeah, we should put it out there. Get a poll going. We'll just let the fans do everything. We're going to become one of those companies, and we'll just have a brand new name for our universe, and everything will be about penguins. It's going to be great.
It'll be Penguin McPenguin Face. That's what your universe will be called.
Exactly.
The Penguverse.
I would actually watch that then.
The Penguverse.
Oh yeah.
Especially if it's a claymation like the original Pengu.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Peter Bond is saying that you should do an RPG next. Sorry, I can't hear myself, so it's very weird. It's off.
I said I should do an RPG deck.
Yeah, he's saying you should do an RPG now within your universe.
It's a good idea. I'll pass that along to the team. We're definitely considering a lot of potentials for our next few games. We try to plan pretty well in advance, but there's a lot of possibilities, and I think they're all pretty exciting. Nothing I can share right now, but an RPG would be pretty cool. And outside of Layways games, I do sometimes illustrate other games as of pretty recently, and I did actually just wrap up finishing a bunch of illustrations for a new RPG game coming out, I think either later this year or early next year. Probably later this year on Kickstarter, and it's called The Miri. So pay attention to that, because that one, it's going to look really good, and I've played it a couple times, and it's really, really fun.
Awesome. I feel like we should rewind, and we can go back right now, because I think it would be good to kind of end up here again. We always like to kind of know the inspiration of like, where did you get, like, you've already kind of told us, look, I help publish, or I'm publishing. Look, I also do art. Look, I do this. It's interesting to always hear how people got there. So we'll go back to like a really nice, easy question to start, and then I want to hear kind of how we led into where you are now. Is kind of like, what were your favorite games growing up, and then maybe how did that link you to where you are, like the path you sort of headed down?
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. I was really into video games as a kid, for sure. I didn't really get a system until the N64, and I was really into Pokemon Snap. I loved the crap out of Pokemon Snap. I don't know what was so fun about that on-rails game where you're just trying to get like the perfect photo, and you're throwing things at like Magmar, hoping he would turn around and you would get the Charizard in the distance just right. But that was a fun time. In terms of board games, I don't even think I really played board games growing up. Probably not at all. I kind of got into board games completely by accident. It was not on purpose. It was not something I was trying to do. The story of Layways games and how I came to be in this weird marriage is that basically this guy in Massachusetts, Jake Given. He and his brother came up with Dragoon, and their childhood best friend, John Ritter Roderick, decided, like, we're gonna put this on Kickstarter. We want to make this happen. It's a good enough idea for a game that it deserves the attention of the Kickstarter community. We'll see if they want to throw their support into this, and maybe it'll become a reality. And I don't think they knew many artists. And John knew of me. He helped me like hang my art in a cafe in Boston one time. So he just knew of me because of that. So he hit me up and was like, hey, you want to play this game and see what you think about doing all the art? And so I did. And we got together and I got to play it. And he asked me if I wanted to do all the art. And I think I originally said no. I was like, this doesn't seem like a good fit for me. Let's talk later maybe. But something happened. I don't even remember what. But eventually what occurred is we worked out a deal that benefited everyone really well, so that I did do all the art and I became a co-owner of the company. And we stuck together because of the success of the first game on Kickstarter. We raised like $90,000 and we were only wanting to raise, I think, $9,000. And we thought like maybe we would hit that. We really had no idea what we were doing at the time. So once that took off in a way that we really didn't expect, all of a sudden we decided, oh, we have to take this more seriously. We have to keep making games, and we have to make an expansion. And well, we've done all that. But yeah, completely by accident. Was not looking to get into games.
It's always the funnier stories when people are like, not like, oh yeah, I was doing this so long just to get in. You're like, I don't know what happened. It just sort of did it.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing art. So as an illustrator, I was like, I could do anything if someone asked me to. I can make anything look good. And it ended up being games pretty early into my career. I think I was just out of school at that point, maybe a year out of school. Up until then, I was trying to do like editorial illustration for magazines. That was way more up my alley. And games didn't have a ton of appeal to me because like none of the artists I admired were making tabletop art. They were like making magazine art. But I thought that it was a good opportunity to maybe insert some like a fresh new look into the world of board games. And I think that that must have been true to a degree, because Dragoon found some pretty immediate success given that we were absolute nobodies. We had no following, no nothing. And all of a sudden it like caught on with the Kickstarter community and people at Kickstarter, and people with like Cards Against Humanity were reaching out to us and helping us get into shows and stuff. It was a wild ride in the very beginning.
That's an amazing set of connections. I mean, a lot of things get put up on Kickstarter and just get ignored. I mean, the fact that companies reach out to you is, I mean, in itself, a pretty impressive story.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a different time, too. 2015, it was a lot less competitive. Nowadays, there's so many games every single day on Kickstarter. But back just a few years ago, it was definitely easier, I think, to stand out. So we benefited from our timing as well.
Sorry, I feel like Jesse's clicking in. Yeah.
Yeah. Did I click in? Sometimes I forget.
I just wanted to make sure.
For a while. Yeah. I'm here. Yeah. So it just seems like a good moment to transition into talking about illustration a little bit more generally for you. You said you got out of school into doing game design illustrations. Is that right? Is that the domain that you've always worked in, or do you have sort of experience and work from other areas outside of tabletop?
Oh yeah, I mean, my experience is all over the place. I originally thought I was going to be doing a lot more magazine work, and that didn't work out. That type of work is really tough. You know, you work really hard to get a job that lasts 2 days, because any illustration and for a magazine, your turnaround is, you know, give me a sketch in 24 hours and then give me the final in another 24 hours. But I've done work I might be doing work for a video game pretty soon. I've done a lot of TV animation work for the last couple years. A lot of apparel, a lot of merch kind of stuff all over the place. The TV animation stuff has been, you know, the bulk of my work the last 3 years. I've been living in Los Angeles working on TV shows like Unikitty and Harmon Quest and Animals, and some other ones. One of them, the name I like always forget, but something on Adult Swim. Tender Touches. Tender Touches on Adult Swim, which is pretty funny. But Animals on HBO is the funniest show I've worked on, probably. Well, I don't know about, well, probably. Harmon Quest is pretty great, though.
It's got to be in very different worlds.
Yeah, they're quite different. But I like working all over the place. I think it's one of the real benefits and one of the most appealing aspects of being an illustrator is that you can work in so many different industries as an artist. And it's really difficult, I think, to work in a few of them at the same time. But I'm trying. I was always advised not to try to do that, but it's working to, a pretty good degree.
Is it that the expectations are different or the scheduling is different? Like, what makes them not really compatible?
That they all take so much effort to get into. So to get into multiple at the same time is a real uphill battle. You pretty much do need a very separate portfolio for whatever industry you're trying to get into. You need a very, very different portfolio for getting into editorial illustration than anything in TV animation. And that's going to look very different than if you're doing like kids lit publishing or tabletop games. They're all just very different fields of art. And it takes a lot of time to make art. It takes a lot of practice to make anything worth showing. So you're kind of doing the tasks of several artists at the same time if you're trying to work in several industries. Sometimes there's like really good and easy overlap, but that's not always the case. Like you can have one style that applies to, a young adult book that also would apply to a video game that would also apply to like an RPG. But that's, more difficult in a different way.
No, it's an interesting thing. It relates to kind of a discussion I remember having with someone recently about actually game design. Like as a designer, do you focus kind of on being known for something? Or is it okay to kind of just do a little bit of everything? Because there's kind of arguments for both camps. Like, as you said, like, do you sort of work up to have a portfolio in one way? Or is it just kind of be like, no. I just like kind of doing a little bit of everything. But obviously, maybe you're doing more work to do that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels to that. Should you be focused or not?
Yeah. And I think that conventional wisdom says that you should be focused, and it's easier to be focused. You'll probably find better results if you're focused. But I'm not focused.
I can't function like that either. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Despite how much of a good idea I know it is, like I would probably have a great career in the world of TV animation if I did only that, but I want to do a bunch. I want to do all sorts of things. So
then what's drawing you to games? Because as you said, you didn't really grow up that way, but obviously you're not willing to give it up. So like, what's sort of that switch that be like, no, I want to do game art.
Yeah. Well, there's a real, so in TV animation, in a lot of ways, you're like a cog in a wheel. There's an entire team and it's fulfilling and it's great. You got to be part of a cool show that everyone really loves, that millions of people watch. And that's a really cool experience. And the pay is great. And then in tabletop, a big difference is that, you're completely responsible oftentimes for the entire start to finish and the look of this game, because most games are done by like a single artist. Maybe it's two, maybe it's three, but it's almost very often it's only one person. So when that's out in the wild, it's like that's entirely mine, and I get to take all that credit, and that's really cool. But I think also a big part of it is just being in the game industry, sort of out of necessity because of the initial success of Dragoon. I've got to experience how great a community it is. I get to go to a lot of conventions, get to meet a lot of cool people. I really love going to conventions and hanging out with a bunch of people that I know in the industry, and it's always a good time. And then I get to play a bunch of cool games. There's nothing not to like about it. So it would be really difficult to give up, but I think at the same time it'd be really difficult to do exclusively. So I don't think I would ever see myself doing it exclusively, and I don't think I would ever not do it again. I would like to continue to do it.
No, I get it. It's the payoffs are different. Obviously, as you kind of said, you're doing this one almost to be part of community, but that doesn't necessarily mean that can be a career full time. You know what I mean? You're making less to earn something in a different way. Which actually might kind of lead into a bit of a question here from Brad, kind of talking about the difference between the two. Is he says, are there unique challenges when designing art for board games that you don't encounter when doing art for other mediums? So besides just having that community, is there something else you're kind of getting out of board gaming that you just don't get that, you know, drawing a cartoon?
Yeah, there's certain challenges and different layers of fulfillment from all sorts of different, you know, ways about creating your art. In games, there are different challenges for sure. Dealing with anything that needs to be physically printed is a lot more challenging than stuff that ends up on TV. There's a lot more forgiveness with that stuff that's not going to be printed and looked at up closely. And the way the TV animation pipeline works, I don't share as much responsibility for everything. Like, I touch it, it looks good, and then someone else touches it and it continues to look good. But, you know, there's missteps along the way. It's nobody's fault. Things just happen. Eventually, it's going to look great on TV no matter what. There's so many people involved. And with games, a lot more is on my shoulders to make sure that the game comes out looking good. But that's, you know, that's a pro and a con, because I really do like saying that it's cool to say that I helped make Harmon Quest Season 3, but, you know, I helped make it. A bunch of us did. But for like a game like Dragoon, I can say that I am solely responsible for that game looking good. In addition to, like, you know, Pat Fahey, who's a 3D modeler, and Raquel, who is our graphic designer. But by and large, you know, all the art at least is mine. So I get to take that and own that, and that's a good feeling. And it's cool to be at conventions, and I just get to hear like the most the warmest welcome from so many fans about how much they like the art and how much they enjoy the game because it looks good, or they got it because it looks good, and they're so glad that the game is really fun to play. And I get to sign a bunch of boxes. Makes me feel a little bit like a tabletop rock star, which is pretty cool. It doesn't hurt at all. I'll take it.
That's awesome. I think it's a sense of a bit kind of this idea of completionist. Like, obviously working on a show, your part's done, that's it, right? Like, you get to kind of take something to a finish line. And I guess the nice thing is a bit of ownership too. As you said, it's like you get to be part of all the different aspects of this project.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so like with like a TV show, my end date is here, and they still have to animate it for another 6 months. It'll be on TV eventually. I'll see my name in the credits, and that's a cool moment. But yeah, with games, you know, you're there from start to finish, and you're there like when in my unique position of being part of the owner of the company, I'm there before we even like really know what the game's about, you know, and I get to have influence in that and shape that and help with all sorts of aspects that go beyond just making the art, which is really cool. So being an owner of Layways Games is also an especially cool thing.
And have there been moments where projecting out, thinking about what the game is going to look like, has affected feedback and direction that you've provided at earlier stages of the design process on a project?
Yeah, I think that can definitely happen. When we're trying to like hone in on a theme, some of the art will get done before the theme is completely fleshed out. And, you know, we might have like a few different directions of a style, and that art all of a sudden can be sort of inspiring to the rest of the team. And then that might affect how the theme evolves and what directions we go into. And it can change mechanics, and mechanics can... Art can very easily have to change if mechanics change. And sometimes we've looked at things for the reverse reasons, like the art was so cool in this way, what are some mechanics we can get to make that work?
Interesting. You don't usually hear it from that direction. We usually have an argument between like theme versus mechanic, let alone like no, this piece of art dictated the mechanic. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, art can definitely be inspiring. I think that I've heard stories about Root. Root had mechanics in place but no real theme. And a lot of that was built around Kyle's art. Kyle just draws a lot of woodland creatures out of like for fun all the time, and I think that Root and its success owes him a lot. A lot of that was based on Kyle Farron's work.
That's fair because it's a fairly abstract
Yeah.
game until you.
Yeah, and Scythe was sort of like
face
that,
on
right?
it.
Like Jamie Stegmaier, he licensed the art. This was art that was like already done by some Polish artist whose name I can't pronounce. Something like that. So yeah, it happens every now and then.
Cool. And yeah, we've got a shout out here from Marshall. Marshall Britt says Nick designed a pin for us, and he was amazing to work with. And we should give a quick shout out because anyone who goes to your website will see you do have pins that you guys make and pin collections.
Oh,
you
yeah.
really
Actually,
do
we
want
have
to
to
do a
update
little bit
that.
of everything.
Yeah, I make a lot of pins these days, and I have probably a lot more coming out soon. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the works. Yeah, my days are pretty wild. I don't know. This feels too much like a humble brag, but like just today I probably picked up like 2 more jobs, and yesterday I picked up like 3 jobs, and so there's a lot of illustrating going on.
There you go. We have a question, I guess, quickly from the audience if you're interested. This is top 3 favorite board games. I think maybe they mean currently, maybe they mean of all time. I'm not really sure, but we give a quick turn to like what kind of games are you interested in? Is that also what drew you to certain games in the first place? Let's go down that venue.
Yeah, let's see. What are my favorites? I would have to say Secret Hitler is definitely one of the games I've had the most fun with, and I do totally have a soft spot for sillier party games. Those are just like my most fun experiences. I do not have the attention span to sit down and play like a 3-hour game, and I never have, and I don't think I ever will. Maybe one day, actually, someone can convince me to do it, but so far I haven't. I like to play quicker games, so I love Secret Hitler a lot.
Is it just the
I played the
bluffing
silliest
aspect
game.
of it?
Say again?
Is it the bluffing aspect of it? Is the lying? Like, what part exactly is it? I'm curious.
The bluffing, the lying, the deception, it's all good. I think
You just love all of it. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, I've only had good experiences with it. I've only played it. I've played that game probably more than any other game ever, and it's almost always been with like 9 or 10 people because I'm playing it like at every convention, like several times a night. So I've had nothing but good times, and I was on the Celebrity Secret Hitler panel at, I don't know, PAX West of last year or something like that, and that was so much fun. So I love the crap out of that game. And really whatever Tommy Moranges makes, he makes Inhuman Conditions, which is was a really cool 2-player game. Probably like one of the coolest 2-player games you can play. Have you guys heard of that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh,
No.
It's like so Blade Runner. It's one-on-one, and you're interrogating the other person, and you're trying to determine if they're a human or a machine. And they might be like a deadly robot, and it's only 5 minutes, and it's on a timer, and you have a set of rules, and they have a set of rules. It's really, really good.
So you really like
Happy
that
Salmon.
that trader mechanic?
Happy
I can hear-
Salmon is amazing.
Happy Salmon is so good.
I love the juxtaposition of this. Hitler.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happy Salmon.
Yeah. Happy Salmon was like, so I worked at a game store for a summer a couple years ago, and it's something I recommend all game designers do for a short stint so you can understand the product marketing side of things better. And Happy Salmon is the game that taught me how moments can sell games. I sold 3 copies of Happy Salmon every single shift I worked. And all I had to do was get someone to play it with me. And 2 other people in the store would also buy it.
Yeah. I think that I have a very similar experience when we are doing our booth at like PAX and stuff, and we have Heads Will Roll. Because like that's a game you play in 30 seconds, and it's just like instantly it's a good experience. And so I think like every convention we've sold like a few hundred copies, which is insane. It just moves so quick. It's such a fun, easy game. But yeah, Happy Salmon's amazing. And a game that I'll mention that I just played for the first time at PAX East, I think it was released at PAX East, which is We're Doomed by Breaking Games.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I liked it a lot. It was intense. So like that's another game that has a time limit. You can only play for 15 minutes before you're all doomed. And basically you're going around in a circle and you're deciding like how many resources to contribute, because you're gaining resources and you're contributing resources, and the more you contribute, the more seats there are in the ship, so the more of you get to survive. So I got to play a game like last Friday where seven of us are playing, but we're playing for the first time. With most people, it's their first time playing, and so we only got enough resources for 2 seats. So only 2 of us are going to survive, and one person had like the most influence points, and 5 of us were tied for second. And so the one other person had to like be the deciding vote of who got to get that seat. And so we all gave like a really good speech, and it was a really good ending to that game. So I really liked We're Doomed.
Games like that kill me inside. I'll be fully honest.
Yeah.
It just
It's totally fair. I mean, everyone has different games. I think a good game, so someone did describe that game as anxiety the game. Because
I mean, like it would break my empathy.
Yeah, for sure.
I got to play We're Doomed at PAX East as well, actually, at the event where I met Nick. And like the crazy thing for me about that game was sitting back and realizing, hey, if all 8 of us just actually worked together, we could probably all get out. It would be fine.
But we don't.
Like, we brought this up to Peter. We're like, how did you not, like every game designer in the room was like, Peter, how did you not see this obvious flaw in the design? He was like, people don't work together.
Yeah, we had the same conversation.
You know what?
Like,
sorry, I was going to say, I think it's how you prime people too, right? Like if I primed you to say, there's a chance all of you could survive, there's a chance none of you could survive. See what happens. Totally open. You might work together. If I said to you, this is a competition, you may not all survive, how do you already start? In competition mode. I think the setup matters 100%. Like again, because I don't want to get into like if people are inherently bad or good here. Because I think it's like how you set people up into a game. Like that's why you have certain expectations of like if I'm going into a game, I at least need to have a general idea of what am I doing, right? Yeah. And why am I doing it? And so if I have a different expectation on why I'm doing something, I might be a lot meaner than a game where I was basically implied not to do that.
Yeah,
that's all I was gonna say.
And it's hectic. Like the last minute, all of a sudden, it's becoming more and more clear who's going to get a seat and who's not. And you abuse that information. You're like, I'm gonna nuke them. Then I'm gonna make sure that they don't get a seat. I'm gonna take their seat. So I think that game is a lot of fun. If you want a less intense game, I would recommend Bloom, which is on Kickstarter currently by Yanaguana Games, which I designed a pin for.
There you go. Shout out for the pins again.
It's about flowers.
Pin culture is huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started realizing that more and more, how genuinely big pin culture has become yet again. I love the resurgence of retro things, but like we've taken it to a whole new level.
Yeah. We sure have.
Yeah.
I'm just having a quick check, like what's going down the side here. I wasn't really paying attention.
All good.
Is we're putting up a poll right now whether or not Nick should wear a penguin costume to Gen Con? Is that what's going on here?
Oh no.
I think Sen has done that. Yes, he has created such a poll.
So there is now a poll if you'd like to go vote. So you know what? This is a great chance to just give a quick shout out if you haven't been onto it yet. Meeple Syrup Shop Talk is a great way just to kind of bring up questions, have little discussions on stuff. We poll about information, apparently, whether or not someone should also be costumed as a penguin. And I'll also say one of our big New Year's goals was we said we'd really like to get to 1,000 people for our Facebook page, and we are very close to that. We're at 925. So thank you to every new person in the last couple of weeks. We've got a lot of you guys have kind of been trickling in. So hello to all the new people.
And in the time that we plug Shop Talk, we've got another audience question. Do you ever get artist block, and how do you deal with it?
As an artist, I get this question a lot, actually, and the answer is no, I never do. And the reason I don't is because I legitimately draw about 10 hours a day.
Like you can't stop, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like the entirety of my income, so I really can't stop. I'm not allowed to stop. So yeah, never dull moment. I'm working on so many projects at the same time. I think that in the past I've gotten artist blocks for sure, but like the past 2 or 3 years, I've been working far too continuously to have it happen. But the answer is almost always just to draw more anyway. Because I think you can very easily psych yourself out and think that you have artist block when really it's just like you're impatient, because drawings never look good immediately, or they often don't. So you just got to keep working it, and if that one sucks, you draw something else. It's always the ability doesn't actually leave you. It's that you've gotten too impatient with not seeing immediate results. So just keep drawing. And
it's an interesting outlook on
you'll
it.
You'll be happy soon.
Yeah.
We'll never really be happy, but you'll be happy enough soon.
No happiness guaranteed. Just
exactly.
Yeah. I think that's good general advice for dealing with creativity blocks. Just keep making stuff anyway. Yeah. So where else
are we getting sent back, or are we good?
Like, I think we might have lost him forever. Okay. So as we're getting in, go ahead.
I was going to continue because I think this might be a good segue a little bit. Is we really like to talk this episode. We like to talk a lot often about design, and what you have is a really interesting relationship because you have a relationship with designers. So you're not only just as like the artist but as the publisher. And so, I mean, you kind of already talked about your approach by the Brother team, right? Which I think they've done more than one of your games now.
Yeah, they've done all our games so far. Well, pretty much. So Dragoon and Human Era are designed by Zach and Jake Given, as well as Life Siphon. Heads Will Roll is done by Matt Fantastic and Alex Cutler, and Metal is done by Jordan Draper.
So I think what would be nice to hear, and a lot of our audience tends to be designers or aspiring designers that would like to be published. So it's always nice to hear kind of like, what's the relationship like between you and the designers? Like, how does that kind of work, and what is your kind of give and take? Because you do serve two roles, so we can kind of hear it from both sides. It's always nice to hear an inside perspective on what's it like to work with designers and what are the expectations.
Yeah, well, I have very limited insight into mostly our own designers who they're brothers. So we're in a Slack channel and we talk like constantly all day long. So they're a pleasure to work with. It's really funny watching them throw out ideas to each other, and they're really good about note taking. So like you just see like so many long Slack messages of like high-end mechanics and stuff flowing through, and they're fun to work with, I would say, for sure. Because of our unique relationship, I think they're like especially receptive to what I have to say as an artist and how that changes stuff on their end, and how the things that they change with their mechanics and gameplay stuff can affect stuff on my end. It's very different than than the traditional scenario where designers, they make the game, it's done, and then you send it off to an artist, and it's like spec work, and like we need this many cards, this many this many that, at these exact dimensions. And because we're all collaborating basically from start to finish, there's a lot more experimentation and room to wiggle, and we'll change the dimensions a little bit, we'll change entire shapes, we'll change material, we'll change how things work entirely. And that's a really cool situation to be in. And as far as like other designers, we haven't worked with too many other designers that like aren't just personal friends of ours yet, but we're hoping to change that in the near future. We're going to start taking pitches from aspiring designers and hoping to publish more games. So that's going to be a big a big, new thing on our end, and that'll be a lot of fun. And I hope that we get some really cool pitches. And we're honing in on what we're like looking for in particular right now. But I definitely, in general, want to hear from, pretty much anyone. But like, especially if you want cool art and probably metal pieces, we're a good publisher to talk to. And if you want penguins, stay away. Just stay.
Oh, well, forget it. I'm not going to talk to you. Do you have a sense of like, do you expect to be taking pictures at conventions this summer? Should interested designers start reaching out to you and making plans, or just keep an eye?
They can start right now. We're going to do something more formal in the not so distant future. Anyone can email us anytime about anything at hello@laywastegames.com. I think the soonest we'll be taking formal pitches will be probably Origins and Gen Con, the next two big conventions that we'll be at.
Still pretty soon.
Yeah, very soon. We'll make some time for designers that want to show us some things. So I think one or two of us were going to go to Origins, and I think most of us will be at Gen Con. So if you want to reach out to any of us. Say again?
In penguin suits.
Maybe.
I mean, like the polls.
We'll see what the poll says, because.
By the way,
replace penguin with Reptar because I already own a Reptar suit.
Well, there you go. I figured out what my my issue was with my audio. I had another page of this open somewhere.
Oh,
that's what happened.
That'll do it.
I didn't even know I could do that.
If you're going to be at Origins and Gen Con, what's always helpful to know from publishers is sort of where they're going, because then that really tells us what kind of games are they kind of looking for, right? So, a lot of times designers will look at a catalog and say, "Oh, this is what you want," but it's kind of what they already have. So we always like to hear is, what are you looking for? What's coming next?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that we don't have set in stone right now. We have a pretty good vague idea of what we're going to be telling people that we're looking for. I think in general, we don't want to make a game that costs more than $70, for instance. We want to be more accessible. We want a game that probably doesn't take super long to play. But really, we want something that's more unique, something that hasn't really been done before, and something that I personally think would really benefit some really cool, unique art. Something we want to like push the boundaries a little bit more, I think, generally, and we're looking for designers that also want to do that.
You know what? I think this is a perfect opportunity to also talk about the fact that you guys don't seem to be afraid of some unique component parts. So maybe on the side, why don't we talk a little bit about kind of metal and what that took to put together, because that's probably a Kickstarter horror story to most people that worked out. So I think it's always great to know as a designer when you're like, oh, but we always say to ourselves, like, nobody's going to want this. It's expensive. It's this, it's that. It's good to know when a publisher, and there are a lot of publishers out there who are like, let me see what I can do. And so it's good to know that they're out there. And so I think this would be probably a helpful story to understand a bit more about what you guys are willing to go through for the games that you want to put out.
Yeah, we'll go to very extreme lengths. I don't know if anyone knows. Some people definitely know the story. I don't know if it's very popular. I'm sure it's not. But like the original Dragoon, when we made that out of metal pieces, we had the metal pieces done locally in Rhode Island. So we would like rent a van, go to Rhode Island and pick up thousands of pieces of metal at a time, drive back to Massachusetts in our warehouse and hand pack the games. Like thousands of games are like hand packed. So we'd be at shows and and people were kind of like, why isn't this game, wrapped in plastic? And it's like, because we packaged it ourselves.
We didn't buy that machine yet. Yeah.
Well, we had the machine and we're like, oh, this takes so much time. This isn't worth it. It's already taking us like 40 hours a week just to pack these games. Our first PAX East was, or maybe our second pack, our first PAX East where we were selling Dragoon was insane. It was like everyone was in the warehouse just packing as many games as they could for like 7 hours a day. So we'll go to extreme lengths for sure. Metal actually wasn't too difficult. We had a lot of really, really valuable help from our manufacturer. We had Panda help manufacture that one. And, you know, there's like some back and forth. Some things need to be changed. Some metals got tweaked. I think the box went from steel to aluminum for a variety of reasons. But really, it wasn't nearly as much of a headache as it could have been. So that was like kind of an experiment on everyone's end. Panda was like, we've really never done anything quite like this. Obviously, nobody had, because it's a sort of silly idea. But the end product looks awesome. I got to see it. I got to see it at PAX East for the first time, because I have like a prototype version, but the final version is really, really nice, and people are gonna really like that. I wish it was a little bit more popular than it was on Kickstarter, but I think like once people will see the final version, it'll grow in popularity, because it's a real steal at whatever price it is. Totally forget.
Whatever price it is.
But it's a bunch of metal though, and the games are so much fun. It's a really good time. I played it a bunch at Unplugged last year. It was great.
So are your games transitioning? Like, are they available retail? Is it more like online store purchases? Like, kind of how is your stream from Kickstarter working?
Well, so far we've been mostly selling direct to consumer ourselves. Not a ton of distribution, not a ton of retail, and a lot of that was because for so long Dragoon Gold Edition was our big game being sold, and because we're hand packing them, we can't put into distribution with the same ease as just a completely mass-produced kind of game. But now we're starting to get more into distribution and retail, so you can find our games places, but it's still easiest to get it from us directly at like laywastegames.com/store. That's always a safe bet if you can't find it anywhere else. I think that'll change in the future. It'll be easier and easier to find our games, but as of right now, it is probably easiest just to get it from us. At conventions, if you see us at a convention, buy our games. I think that's always fun because we work our own booth, and I feel like a lot of times people don't realize that who we are. It actually happens all the time. People will walk by and they have no idea that like the people talking to them and selling them games are like the designer and the artist. They just think we're like booth help that got hired.
Like, no, we do everything.
Yeah, it's like, that's us. We do it all.
That's why you need to be on shows like this.
Say again?
That's why you need to be on shows like this, so people can see your face.
That's right. We really need to like up our popularity game tenfold, and then people will know who we are.
Just for your next game, make the art just all of your faces.
Face. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. That's your box cover.
Jordan Draper did that. Jordan Draper on one of his games is just like a big photo of his face in the top left side. It's great.
Yeah, Jordan's something special though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I had a face like that, I would definitely put that on a box.
Of course. So we're running out of time. I mean, this has been amazing. Just talk. There's so much to know about Nick Nazzaro and all the stuff he does, like dressing up as penguins. I mean, it's awesome. So which he will do because the poll said he should. Now I just want to end the show because we're about at that time. It's amazing. When we have guests on, we ask them to come on and give us a piece of information or a piece of question or advice for the audience. Our audience is typically, designers, maybe some newer designers. What's one piece of information or one piece of advice that you would give them from your side of the table, which is the illustrator or publisher side, to help them make better games even tomorrow or even tonight that they're prototyping? What's one piece of advice?
I would say collaborate with an artist. Everyone is dying to hire an artist, and I think that that's great because I definitely think all artists really deserve to get paid really well. Artists should definitely make their money. It's so competitive out there to make a visually distinct looking game. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you collaborate with an artist, you give them a big chunk of ownership like I got, or you give them, hefty % of game sales, something that's really appealing. None of that stuff where, they only make money if this makes money, some kind of weird balance. But don't be afraid to get into like a real partnership with an artist, and it can really pay off in a big way because better looking games sell a lot better, without a doubt. It's kind of almost definitely the case. Good art can easily pay for itself if enough games get sold. You're doing a higher print run, your cost per unit goes down. There's so many ways that paying big money for good art can really pay off.
Yeah, because the art you're only really buying once, or licensing once anyways,
Yeah.
for the period of time. I do have a question for you, Nick, a follow-up to that. If you are saying that art sells and things like that, and you are, and it's true, when you are going to take pitches, are you going to be looking for pretty prototypes? Is that a thing? Or do you think you have enough of a critical eye that you can be blind to the fact that some prototypes aren't going to look as good as others, but there's still a good game, and it just needs to be arted up by somebody with some talent?
Yeah. That's a good question, because I think that when we're looking at games, I'm trying very hard, especially when I'm personally taking pitches, to envision what my art would look like on that game, or what I could make that game look like. And that's pretty easy for me to do as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, very important. So what they already have doesn't matter a ton.
Great.
But at the same time, I would definitely suggest that your prototypes, generally you're not pitching to an artist. So your prototype needs to look decent. It doesn't need to look finished at all. But it definitely helps your chances if it's decent, because just good graphic design is going to make it easier to understand what you're doing. The readability is huge. You can't have it be crappy. So just avoid being crappy looking.
that needs to be our pro tip for tomorrow. Avoid being crappy.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that.
It applies to everything really. But
really
crappy
does.
graphic design will make your game hard to understand and hard to play, and it's gonna make it less fun to play, and it's not gonna go over as well. So you want the best experience you can as easily as you can, and that usually requires at least pretty decent graphic design, even if you have no art.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think as my last follow-up question to that is, when you are going to be taking pitches, is there an expectation that a person knows about the lay waste overs? Or is it something that you are going to have a style guide for, or a lore guide for? What do you think? Do you want to keep all the games in the lay waste overs?
Is every pitch in the future going to be in this universe?
Definitely not necessarily. I don't think that, we can probably suggest it if we see a good opportunity, we could fit this into our universe in this way. And if the designer is yeah, let's do that. That sounds cool. I think that us as publishers, it's going to be, we want a pretty collaborative relationship. We don't want to just be all right, here's your %. Everything is ours now. We're going to do whatever the heck we want. It's not going to be too much like that. So if everyone's on the same page about it, that would be great. But
you're saying there's a chance that we can see
there's always a chance. Yeah, there's
penguin
style
game.
So guys, all your penguin games, this is where they go.
Yes. So all the
ignore brain games. Ignore brain games.
All the penguin games
who are actively using penguin games. We're gonna go. Everybody bring them over here.
Yeah.
If you wear that suit, you are getting penguin games.
Yeah. That's a disincentive to wear the suit, though.
No, but you want the penguin games. People apparently love penguins. Have we not learned the moral of this story? Hang on. The moral of the story is people love penguins. Why are we not giving them?
I thought the moral of the story was that penguins make good April Fool's jokes.
That's probably more of the story.
Is it real April Fool's joke, or is it people really want it?
I don't know. Okay. I do have one last thing. Sorry. Just because I was off the mic for so long, I feel like I haven't had my say. And it's not really my say, it's a question. So before, when you were saying, Nick, that you want to get in a relationship with an illustrator, and that it shouldn't be, if this makes money, you'll make money. What is that relationship look like? Dollars and cents. What's the breakdown that you would say is acceptable and respectable of an artist's talent? yet still respectable for a designer or a publisher to say, look, I don't have any money now. Do you want to do this together? Or, exposure, obviously, exposure bucks pay for nothing. But how can we work a relationship out? Because we've done a project. We did a project just a couple weeks ago, like a couple months ago, really, and we paid the artists upfront, and we paid them in 50 on, and then 50 when their part was done, 50%. And then the publisher said, no, we're canning that project. And so our budget, we put out all into the artists because we also believe artists should get paid, but we're also artists, right? Designers are artists. We're creating a game that's a work of art. And so it's actually really funny. I've looked at sales lines for games, and who ends up making out like a bandit if the game doesn't do well? It's the artists and the graphic designers, because they get paid in
because they
full.
pay up front.
Yeah.
No matter what happens. The designers who are waiting for that 6% or 7% or 8% or 9% or whatever it is on the end, they're the ones that get shafted. And then obviously, the publisher, depending on the level of the print run, may feel a little shafted by it. But anyways, it's a really interesting thing that the artists, because they're a known quantity, and the game actually can't go to print without that art.
Yeah, it's a vital piece of the process. You can't skip it.
Yeah,
but I think that it's very different for indie publishers who've never made a game and they're very new to design and they just want to put a game out there because they have a cool idea. It's very different than the publishers that do have budgets who are paying artists up front. Mm-hmm. And I think that my advice was more geared towards the absolute newcomers who barely have a budget and they're trying to do it on the cheap. And I think that they'll never really find the success that they want to find by being cheap, because you're going to end up with probably a subpar looking product. And there's a lot of games getting put on Kickstarter that don't look great. So
yeah. So would you say
partner?
With the partnership, what would it look like as an artist? What would you accept?
I mean, it could be a 50,
not you
50
today.
Thing.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Would that be 50-50 of the profit? Would you have wanted to be paid a little bit up front?
Ideally.
Yeah.
Ideally. I mean, if it's a 50-50 thing, it's probably with the understanding that, we're both together living and dying on whether this succeeds or not.
Right.
And that's a fair thing to do. But like, obviously not every artist is going to go for that. I would say a lot aren't and a lot can't, because that's maybe money, and it's hard to work for maybe money without
They need rent.
already having definite money. So it's not a position that a lot of people could even accept. I just think that it's a potential solution to the problem of being an indie designer, not having a path to a good artist because you don't have any money, but you still want to make a game and you have no other alternative. Not like it's a last resort type thing. It's just another path you can take. And it's sort of how I ended up becoming co-owner of Layways Games. They didn't have upfront money. I had like a guarantee of how much money I could make, and I got more if the Kickstarter did better, and I got co-ownership of the company, and that ended up working out really well in my favor. And it could have gone really badly, or not too badly since we had a minimum in place. But I think that there's a lot of indie designers out there who've never done this before, who don't really realize that the artists that they want to hire are a lot more experienced and skilled at what they do than what you are currently at, like game designing.
Yeah.
So they deserve, something good as well. And they're going to play a huge role in they're hugely responsible in the success of your game. If your main thing is especially Kickstarter, which is like basically just you're selling the idea in a visual platform for a visual product. So your visuals matter,
right?
And people are going to see it and they're going to click on it and they're going to pledge based very much on what it appears to be.
Right, because it's not a real game yet, mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're changing more and more away from that. It's rare that things go up that are like basically conceptual anymore, but you're right. Kickstarter as core is a insanely visual medium that if you do not if you do not win with your graphics, with your visuals, with your standout, like you can't survive that world.
I mean, it's pretty true for selling anything. All of advertising and marketing it's all visuals.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And aspirational stuff that don't matter.
Yeah.
All right. Well, excellent. Thank you, Nick, for joining us this Wednesday. We really appreciate you being here. It's nice to finally talk to you, and we'll hopefully see you around in a penguin suit. What do you say? Penguin suit?
Who is supplying this penguin suit?
I don't know. Daniel Zayas is maybe.
Where'd you get your Reptar suit?
We're gonna have to run a Kickstarter for a penguin suit. A custom
just for the penguin suit? For Nick. Okay, we'll see what we can do about that.
Someone has said in the chat that a tux would be enough because it's
that
already a penguin suit.
That was, of course, Daniel. He said I'd settle for a tux, to be honest.
No excuse.
I do have a tux, but it's burgundy, so it
doesn't
quite work.
But you should
is
still
getting
wear
better
that.
and better. You can now be Willy Wonka.
Right.
That's
so many possibilities, guys.
Because they both waddle.
And on that note.
We'll say goodbye to you all. Thanks, Meeps, for watching. Daniel, Jesse, Fernandez. Let's see who else is here. Peter Vaughn. Edgin Hahn. Yeah, you do. Marshall Britt, Jason Wiseman, Brad Batchelor, Mike Eckert from KublaCon. Sir Bob.
I know most of these people.
I know, and they love you. They're saying, hey, David Tomei, David Madden, everybody who's out there, Jamie Jones. Thank you very much for watching today, and we'll be back next week when I'm not sure what we're doing. What are we doing?
We have Bebo on.
Games.
We're going to talk about content creation.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think she did some content for you, didn't she, Nick?
Yep.
She absolutely did, and she did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely be tuning in and watching that. She's a real rock star.
That's hilarious. She just popped up on the feed as her name was said. It's like she's like Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
That makes sense for a content creator. You type her name and she appears.
Yes, totally does. All right, everyone. We'll see you all later. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching the Meeple Syrup Show. If you'd like to help support our show and the podcast, please visit www.patreon.com/meeplesyrup. Thank you for your support.